Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jason, for this wonderful presentation. We're going to welcome now on stage Melanie first? Okay. We're going to welcome you on stage, Melanie. She's a professor of digital media heritage in the Center for Transformative Media Technologies at Swinburne University in Melbourne, Australia. She contributed or led to so many research projects that I will let her present them. But she's been active in preservation and conservation for a very long time, and especially digital media heritage. So she recently published 2 books, Homebrew Gaming and the Beginnings of Vernacular Digitality at MIT Press, and Game History and the Local at Palgrave, that I totally recommend for the people interested in these topics. They are really wonderful. So the stage is yours, Melanie. Thank you very much for accepting this invitation.
Thank you so much, Yannick. And it's really lovely to be here remotely with you. I wish I could be there in Lausanne. I would like to thank the organisers of this event for inviting me to speak with you today. It's an honour. And I would like to apologise in advance for my voice. I woke up with a sore throat yesterday, so I hope that it holds up and I'm not coughing too much. As we do here in Australia, I would like to begin by acknowledging that I'm coming to you from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Sovereignty was never ceded. In this brief keynote today, I want to do 3 things. Briefly introduce some of the projects I lead, first of all. Secondly, broaden the discussion out, as Jason did, from games to other complex digital artefacts. And thirdly, I want to offer some notes on how things have changed in the 15 or so years that I've been working in game preservation and propose a thesis about incrementalism. I'm going to do the first 2 together for ease. So to tell you a little bit about our game preservation projects and the trajectory that we are on in Australia. The first Play It Again game history and preservation project ran from 2012 to 2015 or 16 roughly, and focused on 50 microcomputer games made in 1980s Australia and New Zealand. It not only led to a range of games being acquired, preserved, and becoming part of the collections at ACMI, the Australian Centre for the Moving Image, and what started out as the New Zealand Film Archive and is now known by its new name, Nataunga Sound and Vision in New Zealand, meaning our treasures in Māori, but to a range of other scholarly research outputs. And what you've been seeing scrolling on the screen is the the video games that have gone into the collection of the Australian Centre for the Moving Image, ACMI. And these are some of the other research outputs from that first Play It Again project. We are now just over 2 years into the second iteration of the Play It Again project, which is focused on 50 1990s games made in Australia, and also includes some of the 1980s console games that we missed in the first project. And these are the aims. This is very much a team undertaking. Here are the partners and people with different skill sets involved in what is a thoroughly multidisciplinary project. These projects are financed by research funding from the national grants body, the Australian Research Council, which means our approach differs from that of some of the other speakers. These projects are collaborations with industry partners, often cultural institutions, the GLAM sector, as we call it here, that acronym I think you'd be familiar with: galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. The games we targeted for acquisition and preservation in these projects, as I said, entered the collections of our partners so they can be accessed for ongoing research and exhibition. My colleague Helen Stuckey developed the concept of a popular memory archive, which she envisaged as both an exhibition of information about historic game titles, a way of gathering information about these games and gaming practices from the community, of hosting blog posts from key people on a range of topics of interest, and building an archive of popular memories, ordinary voices, and often family photographs about 1980s gaming history. The archived 1980s site is still online, and has now been incorporated also into the 1990s Popular Memory Archive, which is currently hosting conversations about some of the local interactions with Nintendo. The second Play It Again project is a collaboration with ACME Again and ARNet, Australia's academic and research network. ARNet are partners because we've been evaluating EASE and now EASY in this project, the Emulation as a Service infrastructure platform that has been built by computer scientists at Freiburg University and has been rolled out in the US, with Yale University as the lead institution and support from the Sloan and Mellon Foundations. ARNet are very interested in offering EASY to their subscribers. And I should say, just to explain, ARNet are a not-for-profit body that run the internet between universities in Australia and many cultural institutions. Some of the outputs from this project to date include the current exhibition of 6 playable vintage titles, both games and the multipath movie, Xena, Warrior Princess, made by Brilliant Digital, from the project. And ACME is currently offering selected games from both Play It Again collections for play in EASY from a browser window. And I have a short video to show you how this looks. Visitors can play these games on their own devices when they're on site, connected to ACME's Wi-Fi. Here's a quick example of a title that no one will ever have heard of, Gumboots from 1990. We also mounted, I'll tell you about that in a minute. I'll just let you have a bit of a look at Gumboots. Have a quick sip. We also mounted a public expo side by side at ACME in February, offering a comparative experience of playing 4 games on original hardware next to an emulated version running in EASY. We're simultaneously working on a sister project called Archiving Australian Media Arts. This is also a team event in which we're working to stabilise and make accessible case studies from these local Australian media arts organisations, amongst others. These are highly significant archives that are now being stewarded by major cultural institutions with whom we're collaborating. This leads me to my second point about how the know-how about preserving games can be extended to other domains. Research into preserving games generates new knowledge that also helps to preserve other types of complex digital artefacts. Though the domains of game preservation and media arts have historically been quite distinct, and there's sometimes been a kind of snobbery and elitism towards games from some parts of the media arts field, we've extended what we've learnt from preserving games and applied this to the media arts domain. As Klaus Reckert from Freiburg University and OpenSLX put it in the title of his keynote delivered at our team's Born Digital Cultural Heritage Conference in February, mastering the preservation of computer games is mastering the preservation game. The stakes are bigger than games alone. The world of Born Digital Cultural Heritage takes in a range of domains where content is tied to specific legacy environments, as is the case with games. Such content is also at risk of being lost due to various forms of technical obsolescence. And this is not just about the past, it is also about the now, because contemporary digital artefacts are also going to need appropriate legacy software environments to run in the future. Preserving digital games is important, And it has given us, and continues to give us, the know-how to preserve a range of software and a range of forms of born digital heritage. Having shown that we can collaborate with cultural institutions to preserve games and media artworks and make them available through emulation via the EASY platform, last year I put together a consortium of university researchers, GLAM institutions, and university archives, and we applied for ARC infrastructure funding to build an Australian emulation network. Happily, we were successful. This means we're about to start building what will be a major national facility with 15 nodes across 6 states. This is anticipated to be the first phase of a wider network of GLAM and university archives, which will have content that needs to be emulated. Sorry, archives which have content which needs to be emulated. I don't really have the time to talk about this in more detail today, but here are a couple of slides about what we'll be doing. We are targeting high-value cultural collections across 5 main domains, shown on the slide here. But our partners also hold such things as digital literary manuscripts, collections databases that require old versions of FileMaker Pro, records from a Royal Commission, and IATSIS, the Australian Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies, has some genealogical databases, which could turn out to be really significant, given that genocidal policies of child removal here have severed many families' connections to country and community. And here's a slide on the key benefits. What I want to say is that the Media Arts Project and now the Australian Emulation Network, AusEASY as we're calling it for short, are the offspring of Play It Again. We wouldn't be doing this work if we hadn't begun preserving games in the Play It Again project 10 years ago. Now, beyond noting that software preservation knowledge can be domain shifted, for my third point, I want to make an argument about incrementalism. We know and can do a lot more now in preserving complex digital artefacts than we could 15 years ago. Things have improved, but we don't know how to do everything yet. On the one hand, this is self-evident, yet I have over the years heard some people lament or expect that it will all just be already figured out. And more concerning, that they don't want to start until it is all figured out. The kind of, we're not going to start or collect because we can't make it accessible, or we haven't got the full workflow yet kind of mindset. Such expectations make me think that it's worth normalising, that new knowledge and processes often come gradually in increments. So let me say, we have discovered in the course of evaluating ease and easy in Play It Again, that games of the 1990s are quite challenging to get running well. Not all of the video cards, for instance, have been emulated, but there's reason to expect that things will get better as time goes by. Here's another example from our work on the 1998 Apple II war game, Rommel, developed by the Australian company SSG. And I'll finish with this point. This game was a problem for us in the first Play It Again project. The programmer Roger Keating wrote a custom algorithm for it to save space, and he couldn't remember what it was. We were only able to make a raw image using a cryoflux because it didn't fit any known encoding, and so we weren't able to emulate it. Back in April 2017, I asked one of the Apple II deprotectors if they could assist at all. They told me, quote, "Currently, there is no one in the world who knows how to convert a cryoflux image into an Apple II disk image. We have converters for Atari and PC, but not Apple. We're working to create one, and there is some progress," end quote. Recently, they sent us a WAS image file, an Apple source disk image, announcing that, quote, "Rommel has finally been preserved," end quote. 5 years and a month later. We expected we might still have problems and could only get it to emulate up to a certain point. Then it was asking for a scenario disk. Our digital archivist pointed out that the archive.org entry on this title has 2 disks, 2 disk images. Judging from our spreadsheet, we seem to have only had a single disk that we imaged back in 2016. Was the second disk overlooked? Was the copy we purchased incomplete? No. The scenario disk is on the reverse. It's a double-sided disk. It seems the most likely explanation is that the research assistant who was doing the imaging for us didn't realise this and didn't ask for help with how to do it. So the mystery's solved. We will get the disk back from ACME next week and attempt to image the reverse side with the Apple source we now have in our lab, which wasn't available when we were doing this work in 2016. John Keone Morris discussed the project at Kansas Fest in August 2017. So I offer Rommel as an example of the incredible community that is working to advance the techniques and tools that are available for preserving and accessing software, as well as the corollary that when there is a dedicated crew of people working on such problems, they often have a habit of sorting themselves out over time. The developments in know-how and technology are sometimes incremental and sometimes much more substantial. But the conclusion I draw is that software preservation is an international ecosystem, and the lack of a complete and perfect workflow is not a good reason for not starting. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Prioritise stabilising the media now, at least, knowing that solutions are being improved incrementally. Thank you.